Hi, I'm Neil Bertrando, and this project is in Reno, Nevada, in a semi-arid shrub steppe climate, and it was a homeowner's property. Site's about 10 acres total, and we were focusing around the pad and downhill from the house, where the runoff really concentrates. And the idea here was to address erosion and excess runoff created by the house itself and the driveway pad and the driveway, and divert that runoff into the area downhill from the house where the land flattens out, and allow it to soak in, both to support a food production orchard and pasture area, as well as the native vegetation. And so here's a zoom in of the house pad. And prior to this project, we had installed some water harvesting swales. You can see to the right of the screen there. And there's one here and one here with a road access crossing through it from the driveway. And we wanted to divert water from the house, both the roof and the driveway, into this area, as well as down into the water harvesting swales. The spillways for these are in these two sections here to allow the water to return back to the landscape. And just 1 second. So this is the gist of the project area. And here's a flow diagram showing the directions that the water comes from, the sources of runoff, and then the structures intended to capture and redirect and redistribute that runoff so that it can to minimize any damage to the site and allow it to slow, sink, and spread in the landscape and support vegetation. So you can see the side of the road was already eroding, and the owner had been going at it with a tractor to kind of reshape it after an erosion gully had formed from a recent rainwater event. And also, to slow the water flow down the center of the road, we recommended installing a rolling dip with a berm and basin to divert the water off the road, and then along the edge of the road, basically a rock lined channel to contain the water and allow it to be diverted out into the landscape. Additionally, that rock line channel will create a kind of aesthetic edge to the road. Previously, the owner had put railroad tracks along the edge to edge the road, and those had just stopped the water and concentrated the flow, causing this channel. And then here's where we're diverting the water back out into the landscape, and both using a Zuni bowl as well as a rock line channel to get it off of the road and change the direction of the flow of the water, and out to a media luna positioned at the alluvial fan portion of the landscape, where it switches from steep to shallow grade, and also has kind of a concave sort of shape, and allow the water to return to sheet flow to flow down the flatter portion of the landscape. And in this yellow diagram here, I've proposed just jute netting or burlap with seed underneath, just to revegetate that area after the water's been returned to sheet flow, with basically native bunch grasses, which is what you see here. So both there will be native seed on site generated to reseed that area through the flow of water, as well as recommend just a light seeding of those bunch grasses to fill it in. And then the water falls into the swale, which allows the water to soak in and support an orchard and berry planting. So these diagrams just kind of show the plan ahead of time, allow the homeowner to understand what we're working with and what we're looking at, where things are going to be placed, so that if they wanted to, they could just do them on their own. And then here's a final rock armor rundown structure for a steep area as it enters the swale and returns to a level grade to spread out and soak in. And then along the road for the second rolling dip, once it goes past a steep area, I designed for another diversion where the water was already kind of flowing out in the landscape off the road anyways, and allowed it to hit the level swale and level sill, spill away for the swale, and then flow into the swale for capture, and then return to sheet flow if the swale fills. So here's basically a as built of the rolling dip here. There's the berm. Here's the channel flow off. And then here's the Zuni bowl in the rockline channel, which will allow the water to change direction. And if it comes faster than this Zuni bowl can handle, it can continue flowing down the slope. And any water that's generated by the second section of road and the second proposed rolling dip, which hasn't been built yet in this picture, can flow into the here and off the road and into the landscape. So here you can see the Zuni bowl that's been constructed, the rockline plunge pool, basically, where the elevation is changing from the road elevation, both the rockline channel on the edge of the road, as well as the basin of the rolling dip. I'm pouring into this structure, which the pool allows the water to change direction more effectively, and it softens the flow of the water in the landscape and allows it to then flow through this additional rockline channel out towards the media luna, which is out here in the landscape. And this is a year after the swales were built, so they're starting to revegetate, and they've filled with water a couple times. And so now this is an additional source of water for the landscape, for the pasture plantings and the tree planting areas. So this was when they were first built, pegging them off. You can see the swales being built. So I'll just kind of zoom through that because that's not the focus here. This project I did about 8 years ago, and it's a little more heavy-handed than I would go about now. I would probably just do a brush mineral structure like a wood chip and mineral berm across the landscape below the tree plantings to catch and store water and sediment where the tree plantings have gone, and not do kind of large earthwork, which both is costly and then creates some other potential for erosion and stuff. And here you can see the swales with the rockline channel on the side of the road. So all kind of being constructed, and then this addition to the rockline channel, the diversion and the media luna being built. That's the homeowner there and a couple of volunteers for the day. So this was built by myself, the homeowner, and several volunteers. And there's a finished structure. We just dumped some extra gravel down on the media luna because we had it and he wanted to use it up. So that'll just fill in between the cracks and the rocks and stuff. And you can see the vegetation already coming up out of it, and that it's a bit darker green or brighter in color, and it's already growing more vigorously just with the protection of the rocks being placed there.
This is brilliant, Neil. It really shows that we can take really simple tools, really simple structures, and we can put them to good use. And the blending of this into the landscape is very clear and very clean. The drive blends into this rock channel. And as we're taking a look at this rolling dip, again, they blend so seamlessly into the landscape. It really shows how innocuous or how natural, to use the word, these types of implementation, these low tech erosion controls can be put into a landscape.
Yeah, the idea is that they need to blend into the landscape somewhat, partly because water has to be able to flow into and through the structures. And so if there's not a soft feathering of the structure in the landscape, then a lot of times the water will just go around the outside of it and go back down the gully or other sort of path that it was already forming, or even create a new one. So that's actually an important strategy when constructing these, is getting them to fit softly, especially on the edges into the landscape, so water can flow in where desired, and if it does flow around, then it's flowing around on a very flat surface, as opposed to pinched in between a big rock and a flat area, or a little, making a channel again. So that blending is both a wonderful aesthetic and a gentle touch, as well as an essential part and consideration of building the structures for the most part.
Fantastic, Neil.
So you can see here's a after another kind of year, that going into the winter season, the rockline channel is filled up with some small grass vegetation. They decided they wanted to put some asphalt shavings on their driveway, so they enhanced this rolling dip and just put asphalt shavings on the rest, because there was a neighbor nearby that had extra. And you can see this is just starting to veg in and supporting the shrubbery alongside of it. And you can see again, like you're mentioning, that there's the gentle kind of transition from the edge of the road down into the basin where the water flows. And now this is real, the media luna is really filled in with grass, and I think it will just continue to get better over time. This is the lower one. You can see also water has gently flowed through and out into the swale. And this level sill on the swale is tilted back into the landscape with a slight in-cut, in-sloping, and that allows the water to flow off of the road and across the level sill and into the swale. And then if the swale fills, it can come back and flow off of the level sill. So you can both get a filling and a release at the same point, as opposed to having to place them at some separate location in the landscape. And that's it that I have for that at this point.
Incredible, incredible. Well, folks, if you're interested in Neil's work, you can go to rtpermaculture.com, or if you're interested in the low tech erosion control course that Neil and Jeffrey Adams of Terra Sophia are hosting in 2022, check out regenerativeliving.com and take a look at the low tech erosion control. This is a great course for landscapers, ranchers, homeowners, and those who are trying to address erosion and drought.